Years ago, when I was living in Vancouver, I was flipping through the Guinness Book of World Records, and of course I wanted to find the world's greatest polyglot. Who in the world spoke the greatest number of languages? And I found an entry there, and the man whose name was listed and who had been tested by the Guinness Book of World Records lived within a half an hour of my home. I found his phone number, I gave him a call, and we got together and we had some great visits. Let me tell you a little bit about that. I had the great privilege of meeting Powell Janulus. I met him when he was living just a half hour away from my home. I found his phone number, gave him a call, and suggested that we get together. He and his wife and my wife and I went out. The first time we got together, we went to a Greek restaurant, and it was an absolute blast because I hadn't met him before. And we were speaking different languages. We're switching back and forth between languages, and he was speaking Greek with the people in the Greek restaurant. I couldn't speak Greek at that time, but this guy was really inspiring to me at that stage. I hadn't made a lot of progress yet in learning many languages. I knew some a little bit better than others, but I was really just starting on my journey of becoming a hyper polyglot myself. And Powell Janulus was an absolute inspiration to me. By the time he was 18 years old, he says that he could speak 13 languages with a high degree of fluency. When he was tested by the Guinness Book of World Records, he had to do a 2-hour fluency test with a native speaker of each of the languages that he claimed to be able to speak. He spent most of his working life and as a court interpreter, and he did a lot of work in helping to establish the standards for court interpreting in the province where I live in British Columbia. He was authorized by the provincial courts of British Columbia as a court interpreter in a very large number of languages. He even appeared on The Tonight Show way back in the days when Johnny Carson was the host of the show. And Johnny Carson brought in 48 speakers of 48 different languages, and they would chat with Powell Janulus in all these different languages. Powell and I and his wife and my wife, we got together a number of times. First in the Greek restaurant. He was in our home and we were in his home. And that was absolutely fascinating to go to his home. In his home, there were stacks of books absolutely everywhere. I was sitting on the couch and I looked beside me, and there's a big stack of books. Right beside that, another big stack of books. On the other end of the couch, there was another big stack of books. I remember I even went to the washroom, and there were stacks of language learning books there. Powell told me that when he was driving, whenever he pulled up to a red light, he'd grab a book off the passenger seat and learn a few more words in whatever language he was learning at the time. Nowadays, I think they'd probably give you a ticket for that, but in those days, he got away with it. Let me tell you a little bit about what I learned through my visits with Powell. One of the things that he did remarkably well was he connected with people. So when we were in the Greek restaurant or wherever else we were hanging out, if he saw somebody and he suspected they spoke another language, he had to engage with them. And he would ask people, do you speak any other languages? I'm a linguist. And then he would switch and talk to them in their languages. He would attend cultural events and visit the celebrations and speak Punjabi here and Spanish there, and always connecting with people. I think he really believed in something that I've always said, which is that language learning is not an academic experience, it's a social experience. Language learning is about connecting with people, not about connecting with course material, and that's the great inspiration of it. I remember also when I was chatting with Moses McCormick, who passed away not long ago, but he did many videos on YouTube, and you can see that when he engaged with people in different languages, he was laughing the whole time and smiling. He couldn't talk with people without laughing because he just loved people. And this is one of the great keys to being successful at language learning, in my view. And it's what inspires me and what gets me going. I want to connect with people. So Powell demonstrated that to me a lot. Another thing that I really appreciate about Powell Janulus was that he seemed to believe that there were absolutely no limits to the number of languages that you could learn and how well you could learn them. So when he was tested by the Guinness Book of World Records, they tested him in 42 different languages, 2-hour grueling tests in each language with native speakers, and he did splendidly. He said that he was tested in 42, but when I spoke with him, he said he had a high degree of proficiency in 50 languages, but they couldn't always find people who could test him because he spoke some kind of unusual languages that were not widely spoken. So, as I said, in Powell's house, there was books everywhere. And something I found about successful polyglots everywhere is that they tend to have a lot of books. Books aren't everything, but they do play a very important part in becoming multilingual. And so I'm addicted to my books, and I collect a lot of them. Powell also demonstrated the concept of lifelong learning. He had never stopped. He was constantly learning, and wasn't about to slow down as he got older. He's still living. He's about 20 years older than I am, still living, and I'm sure that he's still learning languages. What an inspiration. I hope this is kind of inspiring to you, and I hope that you'll enjoy your contacts with really successful hyper-polyglots, because it just did wonders for me. It inspired me, got me moving, kept me moving, and convinced me that I could probably do the same thing. I could learn a lot of languages and learn them really well. I'm on my way. Gotta go. Gotta study.